"If you can fix this engine, I'll marry you." The CEO laughed, his voice dripping with mockery. The crowd joined in, smirking at the humble mechanic standing before him. But none of them knew. The man they were laughing at once kept $1 billion, free to live under enemy fire. Asterisk, the challenge was thrown into the air like a cruel joke. In the middle of the factory floor, the CEO stood tall in his tailored suit, surrounded by executives and employees. His polished shoes gleamed under the fluorescent lights as he looked down at the man in worn boots and a faded work shirt. "If you can fix this engine, I'll marry you," he said with a grin that wasn't friendly. Laughter rippled through the room, sharp and unkind. The mechanic didn't laugh. His hands were calloused, his face weathered by years of work under scorching heat and freezing nights. He simply looked at the massive machine before him, a machine that had stumped the company's best engineers for weeks. To them, he was just the man who mopped the floors and occasionally patched small leaks. But beneath the quiet, grease-stained surface lay a history that none of them had bothered to ask about years ago. His name carried weight in a world far from this factory. In the military, he had kept entire convoys alive in the desert, fixing engines in the middle of the night while gunfire cracked in the distance. He remembered the smell of diesel mixing with dust, the sting of sweat in his eyes, and the quiet prayers whispered for those who never made it back. When the war ended, he returned home with scars that weren't visible. Jobs came and went, but he never sought titles or applause. He just wanted to work with his hands, to build, to repair, to keep things moving. Now, here he was, being mocked in front of dozens of strangers around him. The silence of those who knew better was deafening. No one stepped in. No one told the CEO to stop. Some watched with pity, others with folded arms, waiting for the so-called floor sweeper to fail. The mechanic stepped forward without a word. He placed his hand on the cold steel of the engine, feeling its vibration, or rather, the absence of it. His eyes traced every bolt, every wire, every line of the system. The way a musician studies a damaged instrument. He pulled a small toolkit from his worn satchel, the same one he had carried through places most people wouldn't dare to go. A tiny socket wrench, a frayed screwdriver, nothing impressive. Yet each tool had saved lives in another lifetime. Minutes passed. The CEO leaned against a railing, confident this was a waste of time. But those who watched closely saw the mechanics. Movements grow faster, more precise, a loosened valve here, a cleaned filter there, rewiring that seemed almost like an art form. Someone whispered, "He knows what he's doing." The CEO's grin faded slightly. Finally, the mechanic stepped back. His hand brushed over the ignition switch. A deep, steady rumble filled the air. Not the choking, sputtering noise they had been used to hearing, but a smooth, powerful hum that spoke of perfection. The engine was alive. The crowd fell silent. The CEO's face drained of its mocking amusement. The man he had ridiculed now stood with quiet dignity, saying nothing, needing no applause. The mechanic finally spoke, his voice calm but heavy with meaning. Respect is earned in silence, not demanded in noise. There was no celebration, no dramatic speech, just the unmistakable truth settling into the room. The CEO's laughter had vanished, replaced by the weight of his own words. The factory workers began to clap, slowly at first, then with growing force. Not for the engine, but for the man who had reminded them that worth has nothing to do with titles. The CEO extended a hand, his voice lower now. "I underestimated you." The mechanic shook it briefly, his eyes steady. Many do. In that moment, the balance of power shifted. The man they thought small had shown them a greatness that didn't need to be announced. "Some people fix machines," one worker would say later, "and some fix the way we see the world." And long after the hum of the engine faded, the story of the humble mechanic would echo in whispered respect. A quiet reminder that true strength often stands in silence, waiting for the moment it's needed most.